Welcome to the City Current Show, powered by Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services.
This show focuses on sharing good news and powering the good in our community. Now here's your host, City Current CEO, Jeremy Park.
Welcome to the City Current Show, powered by Higginbotham. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference and powering the good. And we always love having guest speakers and authors come on the show. That's why you're in for a treat. We're here with Joel Zeff, international keynote speaker, work culture expert, humorist, and author of Make the Right Choice, Lead with Passion, Elevate Your Team, and Unleash the Fun at Work. How are you doing?
I'm great. That was a great introduction, Jeremy. I'm going to just have you do my introduction every day. That was fantastic.
Hey, well, you are an MC as well, so you know what it's like to be on stage and to bring the energy and make it fun. And so we'll talk a lot about fun. But let's start with a little bit of your backstory. When you talk about what led you to write the book, we'll talk about that. But for you as a speaker, talk about your past and how you got into speaking, and then we'll talk all about the book as well.
Sure. I kind of have an interesting background. I started as a newspaper reporter. I was a journalist, and then I went into advertising and marketing. And I was working at a newspaper. I moved to Dallas, and 6 months after I moved to Dallas, the newspaper closed. I was out of work. Now, the people on the Titanic didn't know they were on the Titanic. I was fully aware that I was on the Titanic. I just didn't know when we were going to hit the iceberg. And when we did, I found myself with a lot of free time and a severance check. And so I started doing stand-up comedy. It was something I always wanted to do. And then at the same time, I was taking improvisation comedy workshops. So fast forward, I'm working at a PR agency, and one of my clients was Texas Instruments. And they said, well, I know you do improv comedy on the weekend. We're having an executive retreat. Can you come up and do some of that comedy that you do on the weekends with us? And that's how it started. And the light bulb kind of started flickering on. And just like anything, you just put some energy toward it. And I was passionate about it. I loved it. And that's a speaking career was born that moment.
Well, but it's also a different slant, right? Like it's bringing in fun and humor, but in a way where people can learn. And so talk about that aspect, because when you talk about work culture, that is a big piece of this, is making it fun. And improv is a way to get people out of their comfort zone, but also to bring people together. So talk about the power of improv and fun in the workplace and in your presentations.
Sure. Even that first event, I realized that people love to play. They love these improv games. And I love sharing what improv taught me. And that's why I kind of started having this idea that maybe I could share what improv taught me with other groups. And I would speak here, there, and just like anything, people notice when you're passionate about something and they start referring you, they start hiring you, they start passing your name around. And I love improv. And improv is all about play. It's about engagement. And that's what audiences want today. They want that engagement. And so when we're having fun, we're laughing. And there's no better way to spend an hour than through laughter and fun. We're going to talk about the choices that improv teaches, about teamwork, about how we help each other be successful, about leadership, staying in the game, being more present and in the moment, about finding success during change and disruption, being open and flexible to change, being prepared for change, about celebrating, about creating positive support and creating opportunity for each other. I was with an event recently, and I had 3 volunteers up, and they were just absolutely crushing. One person was singing songs, and they were working together. It was creativity. They had to do different emotions. And people always ask, how does that happen? I didn't know that was in that person. And I said, well, I gave them the opportunity. And that's what improv is about, giving people the opportunity and then matching it with positive support. And there's so many messages that improv teaches us. And it's about creating energy. And when you create that energy and engagement, an audience reacts. They're more open to the message. They're more engaged to the message. And that's why I love what I do. And I've done now 2,500 plus events with all different types of industries.
There's a lot of art that goes into what you do. As a speaker, obviously, it's the content, what's going to resonate, how is it going to be valuable and impactful. but also too, you're kind of like a conductor when you're talking about improv and bringing people on stage where you don't necessarily know what they're going to do. So it's like,
Right.
you've got to have some flexibility there as well. So you end up being a little bit like a conductor and managing through. So talk about your mindset going into a keynote, into a presentation where you know ultimately what the impact is you want to achieve, but you don't necessarily know the path you're going to get there through the individuals on stage. So talk about kind of that aspect of being a conductor and a speaker all at the same time.
Sure. For your listeners and your viewers, if they've never seen an improv show, there's no script, there's no rehearsal, there's no plan. Everything's happening right there for the first time, like you mentioned, Jeremy. And so I'm playing an improv game, and it was through a lot of trial and error of where I wanted to place myself in the game. And so if my audience volunteers are superstars and they're just incredible, I'm going to take a step back. I want them to shine. I want them, because that success is my success, which is again another message of improv. And so if they're, a little more tentative, then I'm going to step in and do more and control more. But what I'm doing is creating ownership. I want them to have passion. And, for those listening, at no time when you applied for a job did the application said, you must have passion for this job. You must have passion for our customers. You must have passion for your team. You must have passion for the brand. No, I want you to be great. I want you to be successful, but passion is not a requirement. We want passion. So improv, how do we create that passion? I give my audience volunteers that opportunity, that ownership to take responsibility, to care. Because when we have ownership, we start to care. And when we care, then we have passion. And so that's why the audience volunteers are so successful. The audience is giving them positive support. I'm giving them opportunity and ownership. So of course they're going to care. They're going to be passionate. And that energy is incredible. And I am surprised every time I step on stage with what an audience volunteer does. And I love it. I mean, I just love when they shine and they just crush. And I wish I could just put them in my suitcase and take them to my next event. And these are just, improv is just the tool to get to the message. Some people use PowerPoint. I use improv. And so the audience sees visually these volunteers make these choices, and the same choices that we have to make as leaders, and how we have to make it to be great communicators, great innovators, and great teammates.
And as you mentioned, it's a great leadership lesson in and of itself, right? Their success is
sure.
your success, just like you said, but giving them the platform, the support, the encouragement, the place to be great, which then leads to all these new opportunities and success. And so carry that into the book, because once again, the book is Make the Right Choice, Lead with Passion, Elevate Your Team, and Unleash the Fun at Work. So talk about what led you to write this book.
The publisher just called me and said, we noticed you didn't have a book. And that's how I recommend, if you're thinking about writing a book, that's the best way. If the publisher just calls you out of the blue, that I recommend that. That's the best way to get a book published. And so I was very fortunate, and right time, right moment. And this book is really a love letter to my speaking, to improv, to all the audience volunteers that jumped on stage with me, because each chapter is about those choices: teamwork, communication, change, leadership, innovation, and in a fun, engaging way. I wanted to make sure the book was fun. My keynotes are fun. I believe in play. I believe in engagement. I did not want this to be a boring business book. There's plenty of those. And so I tell a lot of stories that I've seen over the years. 2,500 events, you pick up a few stories. And so I want the reader to engage, to have fun, and to, kind of explore some of these really awesome choices that improv teaches us.
Give us maybe one teaser. Obviously, we don't want to, we want people to go buy the book, but give us one of your kind of favorite stories from the book.
I tell you what, one of my favorite stories is about my favorite introduction, and it's about Bob. And Bob was an older gentleman, and he was a sponsor, and he was introducing me at this event, probably 500 people. And Bob was great. He was he had full command of the stage, reading the introduction. He was fantastic, had a nice pace, nice energy. The one issue, Jeremy, was he was reading the introduction of the speaker from the day before, which was Scotty the Magician. So, and nobody is, obviously, I don't know, maybe the audience didn't go see Scotty the Magician, but there was no hubbub, in the audience, like, what's going on? They're like, oh, I guess we're seeing Scotty the Magician again. Nobody was saying anything. So I'm off the side of the ballroom and I'm trying to get the attention of the executive director, and he's looking at me and I'm pointing to the stage like, Bob is saying the wrong introduction. And he's not listening because he's got a million things going on in his head to make this event awesome. And he's like, what? This is good. and then I realized my microphone was on. And so I interrupted Bob and I went, Bob. So it's kind of voice of God. And Bob just completely startled, stops. I said, Bob, you are doing fantastic. Great job with the introduction. One issue, you're reading Scotty the Magician's introduction. That was yesterday. I'm Joel, the speaker today. Any chance you can introduce me? And of course, the audience just busts out laughing. The executive director runs up, and I guess there's a bunch of papers on the lectern, and you just see, it's like the movies, you just see papers flying everywhere. And he finds my introduction, gives it to Bob. And of course, I'm just keep going, right? But through this whole time, I just keep like, Bob, I could try to do magic. I'm not good at it, but I could try for you. And the audience is just in tears. They're laughing. And so I get up there and the first thing I say, Bob, just know that it wasn't your fault. It was that guy's fault. And so it was just an awesome way to break the ice and connect with the audience. But also I brought Bob back several times message-wise, because one of my favorite messages in improv is stay in the game. Is that, you are going to make mistakes. Things are going to happen you weren't planning for. And so you have to embrace this change and disruption. Bob embraced the change and disruption. And just like a pro. And it was an awesome moment and one of my absolute favorite moments of my career. And it all came from a mistake. And it became one of my all-time favorite moments. And every message I talked about Bob staying in the game, not giving up, right? Which is it's a very dear message to me that improv taught me about embracing change and disruption, which is another big message, being open and flexible to change. And Bob just absolutely was all of these messages. And it was just really an amazing moment. And I share that story in the book. And it's again, one of my favorite moments of my career.
Well, to your point, like obviously something that was an innocent mistake turning into a special,
Yep.
But also to your point, the way that you can use humor and diffuse it and also to connect with the audience, make it a special moment, but also too, like from an audience perspective, they could have easily thought like this whole thing is staged. Like this is exactly how it's supposed to be.
Jeremy, they did. They're like, you planned that. I'm like, I swear I did not plan that. It just, again, when improv is great, it looks like, like it's rehearsed and planned. It's magical. And, the messages that made that happen are the same messages at your work to create success. Think about what Bob had to do. He had to be open and flexible to change. We deal with change every single day. We had to stay in the game, not give up when we're faced with a challenge and an obstacle. We had to be present and in the moment with the people around us. All these choices are the same choices that we have to make to be successful in our teams, no matter what we do, whether we manufacture, or we distribute, we sell, we're a lawyer, an architect, IT, doesn't matter. It's the same. These messages are universal.
So obviously it's a fun read, a valuable read. It's impactful. It gives people a toolkit to be able to use improv, obviously in the business, to create these results. What are some of those key takeaways that you want people to take away from the book?
I want people to be excited and find their passion. One of the questions I ask is, ask yourself, what makes you happy and fulfilled? And you're going to be surprised by the answer, because that's what we want. We want opportunity and we want positive support. And I want people to read the book and to kind of be energized and inspired, because if they're not happy at work, for them to make the choices to find that happiness, to be fulfilled, right? and to search out that opportunity. What is it that they want? Do they want a different role, a different responsibility? And making sure that they're appreciated and receive positive support. Because if you're not receiving opportunity and positive support, you're in the wrong place. How can you be happy and fulfilled? But I promise you, some business across the street wants a person just like you and wants to give you opportunity and positive support because they know what are they going to get back in return. They're going to get an energized team member that's going to help them reach their goals.
It's hard to distill over 2,500 keynotes and all the experiences, into the book, but how did the process of writing the book in terms of the reflection, the soul searching, but also too, like, as you're pulling out these lessons and the things that you're talking about in the keynotes, how did it change your perspective or reinforce some of the things that, you talked about in your keynote? So in other words, talk about the process of writing the book and how it made you better and stronger.
Yeah. When you start reflecting on some of these stories and you start reflecting on what it means to the audiences, and I think that's very energizing and inspiring. And I think this whole process, even doing podcasts like this and talking about the message, it kind of gives you that fuel, right? And that fuel to continue to reach out and to help people and to engage with audiences. Every time I step on stage and or talk about the book, it's energizing and it's very inspiring and motivating for me, because I need my tank to be full. And that's what, I talk about it so much, that positive support. We have to have that fuel, and that fuel drives our success to reach our goals, to overcome challenges, to deal with change and disruption. And if we don't have that fuel, what takes its place is stress and frustration and negativity. So the process of writing the book was really fueling me and motivating me, and especially, not very long coming out of COVID, where, from 2020, I think it was a year between live events for me, from like February 20 to June of 21. And, and even 22, was not the same. 23 started becoming better. And you want to have that fuel and that energy, and it's important to celebrate that and to create that passion. And that's what we all want.
We'll wrap up with where we can go to buy the book, to book you as a speaker, to learn more and carry the conversation forward.
Obviously, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever books are sold. My website is joelzeff.com. And anybody, if you go to my website, connect with me, send me an email, sign up on my list. There's several ways to do that. And mention City Current. I will send you a free chapter from my book about change, chapter 10, which is one of my favorite chapters. And we Jeremy, you and I talked about change several times today. I'll send you a free chapter. And again, through my website, which is just my name, joelzeff.com. But you can reach out on socials, on LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook.
Well, Joel, thank you for all you do to power the good. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Huge ta-da moment, Jeremy.
Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services is proud to power the City Current Show. We're a people-first company that protects what matters most, the families, businesses, and trailblazers that keep our community going. As one of the nation's top independent insurance firms, Higginbotham is a single-source solution for business insurance, employee benefits, HR services, and personal insurance that's customized for you. We're here to serve you, the people you care about, and your community. Call 866-377-1959 or visit higginbotham.com.